Hi, I'm Sean Bassett.
I'm Ian Bassett.
And welcome to Music Theory.
And this is your episode on rhythm. There's just no getting around it. We have to talk rhythm. Not in a pop culture cool kind of way, more in a clap your hands kind of way.
Rhythm is the most fundamental aspect of music. Think of music as humans exerting their mastery over time. The way our brains and bodies work, though, we need some sort of pattern so we can help sort through all the endless combinations of what we can do with pitch.
In comes rhythm with big old signposts. Check in here, go down the road, meet Hank there, he'll tell you what's going on. You see, without rhythm, our brains can't interpret or categorize what's going on.
So you could be the best note person.
Is that a thing?
It's kind of a thing, but you could be the best note person in the world. But as soon as you get off rhythm, everybody else in the room is going to step off your musical train.
So what is rhythm, and how does meter factor into all of this?
At its core, rhythm is a pattern of regular and irregular pulses. We've all heard the word beat before, often describing something in a song we like. A beat is a pulse of time. We like beats that divide time into a series of equal lengths.
That beat can exist on a note, off a note, in empty space, but intrinsically, once it is set up for us, it's there to help.
It sets up the predictable aspect of music. It's important to remember that we are talking about the time aspect of music, not the pitch aspect. Are all beats the same? Okay, that was a completely unnecessary question since you all know the answer is no, but I like the Socratic method to add some class to these videos.
The rate at which beats occur is called tempo, and as our last hypothetical was probing at, these recurring beats happen at different speeds in different songs.
So we got it, right? Different notes at different speeds and different tempos make up rhythm.
Yup. Wait, no. What are you trying to do, man?
Get this done quickly so we can edit less.
Okay, that's a huge misconception. Yes, it has to do with speed, but not exactly in the way you think.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between speed and our word of the day, subdivision.
If you've ever looked at a piece of music, you're going to notice that some notes are empty, some notes are full, some notes have flags, some are beamed together, and there's dots and all these other kinds of things on the score. They all have to do with subdivision.
And if you've never looked at a piece of music, you might notice that there might be one organizational beat pattern, but there's still different note lengths that appear to be regular.
I think it's time we look at some notes and some different note values.
$10, can I get $11?
You don't have to solidly reject standard notation every time I bring it up.
This is the rhythm tree. Understanding this graphical representation will help you extremely in understanding what actually happens most commonly in music with rhythm and note values.
Now, I'll admit not all music adheres to these principles, just 99.9999% of it.
The other stuff you wouldn't like anyway.
Where this graphic excels is showing us the fact of the episodes. Notes set in a rhythm are not speeding up and slowing down randomly in music, they are subdividing into equal parts.
The different combinations of these subdivided parts can give us endless, even random sounding note lengths, but rarely are they actually random.
Let's use visual distance as an example. Think of this long line as your whole note. To be honest, it's hard to think of a long distance and keep track of it easily. We'll get there in a second, but bear with me. If you want to hear one whole note, it's like looking at the full length of this line.
But what if you want something smaller, but didn't want to waste any space? Well, what would you naturally do to this line? You would divide it in half.
That is what a half note is. Two half notes exist evenly inside one whole note. You'll go down further into the tree and see our next level of subdivision, the quarter note. Two quarter notes exist evenly inside the half note, so 4 quarter notes exist evenly inside the whole note.
We should also mention that quarter notes in 4/4 meter, which we'll get to later, is the part that you would count to yourself, regardless of having larger notes.
There are 2 even eighth notes inside of a quarter note, so there are 4 eighth notes inside of a half note and 8 eighth notes inside of a whole note. There are 2 evenly spaced 16th notes inside of an eighth note. There are 4 inside of a quarter note, 8 inside of a half note, and 16 inside of a whole note, and so on. They get pretty small.
Interestingly enough, Just the names of these rhythmic note types tend to give away their subdivisions inside that big ol' whole note. Just remember, it's a predetermined set distance for your ear.
Distance for your ear. I'll let you put that in your pipe and smoke it.
There's no getting around it. The best way to do this stuff is out loud, elementary school style.
Are you watching this video in a crowd of popular kids? If so, good for you. But chances are you're not. So don't be shy and join in. We can all clap, right? And count to at least 4.
We've discussed music as a language many times on this channel before, but today, let's do it a little bit differently. Let's talk about your mouth. You see, your mouth can decipher signals from your brain way faster than the rest of your body, so you may be able to do something with your mouth that your hands just aren't ready for. So it's perfect for practicing rhythm. Need an example? Okay, ever say something that you instantly regretted because your mouth was faster than your brain? Well, your mouth wasn't faster than your brain, but it's faster than your judgment center.
What my brother is trying to sell you on is starting out rhythm away from your instrument, simply by singing or clapping along. So we'll wait while you and those popular kids sit in a circle for us cross-legged.
The best way to start rhythm is like anything else. Approach it with an open mind.
When you hear that, it's code for shut your pie hole and just act stupid so you can absorb new information.
Here's the metronome. For now, it is your friend.
Actually, it's your enemy, but in that kind of superhero, a hero is only as good as his villains type of way. A metronome will challenge you, it will frustrate you, it will confuse you and confound you, but it will never lie to you. Its rhythm will not change despite you thinking to yourself, I'm on the beat, how come I'm not on with the metronome? Because you're not on, and your metronome is telling you the truth.
First, we need to understand which one of these notes in the rhythm tree you are hearing. Now this can be subjective. You can pick to alter where you're at on the tree depending on how you need to work on something. But from the most basic perspective, a 4/4 beat will track your notes at the quarter note level, meaning you'll get 4 beats per measure or 4 beats before we need to start over again from 1.
So count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great! I know what you're thinking. How the f do I count anything else but a quarter? Well, let's go to the big notes first.
For half notes, you'll need those 4 divided notes to only be divided into 2 even notes. So what do?
You count 1, 3.
Think of those beats 2 and 4 internally or whisper them.
And that whole note, same process, but you need 1 even note instead of 4. So all you need to do is count 1, 1, 1. Use the 2, 3, and 4 to keep track of where you are, because long notes start to space out our brains and we don't internally subdivide them.
Internally subdivide, externally long.
Rolls off the tongue. I wish. Now let's appeal to those shredders out there. What about notes that are more subdivided? Well, we've run out of numbers if we can only count to 4. Lucky for us, way back when, they came up with a system of helping out. You can still count 1, 2, 3, and 4 exactly the same as where they exist in time for the quarter notes, but in between the evenly divided spaces, you can add the word and, meaning in the space of 4 quarter notes, given 8 eighth notes, you would count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and.
Remember, all of the beats are evenly spaced and the numbers counted are in the same spot as they were for the quarter notes at each of the activation points.
I hear your eyebrow raising. Well, what about 16th notes? We now have 4 points of activation in the space we previously added 2, so we need 2 more spots to fill in. In the space of a quarter note, we now have 4 evenly spaced points at which we count 1, E, and The 1 exists exactly where it did for the quarter note. The and also lines up with the and we added during the 8th note section. The E and the exist evenly subdivided in the spaces between the numbers and the and. So, if we look at a line and call it a quarter note length, it subdivides as so. 1, 1 and 1 E and
It's important, no matter how you're counting and clapping, that you're giving the notes their full length and their full note values. Because truthfully, if you're counting and clapping, what you're really just doing is signaling where the note activates.
When executing a note on your instrument or singing, it's really important that you don't cut the notes short in space. In other words, if a note is supposed to be this long, you don't want to make it this long unless it's staccato or otherwise indicated that you should make the note shorter.
But that's another show.
So we've got beats covered and how long they are, but what about the framework in which beats actually exist? Sure, you can have a beat, but how many do you have? And is it always the quarter note that indicates the beat?
Not at all. You can pick any subdivision level and how many times you'd like to hear it rhythmically. We of course have many conventions which we already use. Perhaps you've heard of 4/4? What does that mean?
The top number tells you the number of beats in each measure. When the top number says 4, you count 1, 2, 3, 4. Of what might that be?
The bottom number tells you which note gets one beat. That bottom 4 tells us that the quarter note equals one beat, or one tick on that pesky metronome.
Some common denominators to look out for are 2, which equals a half note, 4 is a quarter note, 8 is an eighth note, and 16 is a 16th note.
Can we at least get to simple and compound meters?
Something tells me we're going to, but it's a big subject.
Okay, so simple meters, they feel even, something like 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can feel each beat and it's pretty even.
Now compound meters are a different thing. So if the top number is divisible by 3, say in 6/8, we only feel the subdivisions.
Think an 1800s ballroom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3.
Different meters have different characteristics. For example, 4/4 is pretty straightforward, while 6/8, which has 6/8 notes, has a totally different feel and bounce to it.
We will, at a later date, get into the different poles of each type of meter and how they can be manipulated. That brings us to our final, almost bonus effect, a measure. A measure, or sometimes called a bar, simply is a length of time for one of your meter counts to be completed. So in 4/4, it means that beats 1, 2, 3, 4 exist in a chunk, then it starts all over again in the next measure.
Measures are the way we keep track while writing music, since sonically we are keeping track with pulses.
Basically, measures make things easier because they set up a sort of grid for us to track things.
I guess my explanations don't always measure up.
So that's rhythm, and it's fundamentally probably the most important aspect of music, because music is an art that exists in time, and rhythm makes it able to be tracked and understood.
Now notes sure are important, but I like to frame it like this. Rhythm is that train that you and your audience are riding together. If you play a wrong note, it's just a tiny bump in the train. But if your rhythm comes off, that whole train derails.
We'll be uploading some fun, albeit a little bit nerdy, rhythmic exercises in the future. So if you like this episode, stay tuned for more.
To recap,
Hi, I'd just like to say thanks to everyone for watching this week's episode of Music Theory. If you liked this episode, be sure to click the like button here on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to leave a comment down below, especially if you have a question about the episode or you'd like us to cover something else in the future.
and if you'd like to get in contact with us or know more about us, please feel free to visit our website at www.thebassettbros.com. And thanks again for watching. That was your episode on rhythm. Go practice and share with your friends.
We're still gonna f*** up. I can't make it to blooper because I said. Take 1. Fastest deciphering ability which you wouldn't get from my head. And share with your friends. 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 And share with your and share with your musically inclined friends. And share with your non-musically inclined friends. And share with your grandma.